Hi everyone, I hope that you all had a wonderful weekend and that you all enjoyed watching the Super Bowl with your friends. And in this video today, I'm going to explore the mysterious nature of the novel that we'll be studying together next week. And I'm really excited to do that with you. And I'll try to answer that question today. How is it possible that the Bondwoman narrative possesses all the charms and devices of the popular mid-19th century fiction? So let's explore why this nature is so mysterious to me. And first, I'll try to show you that the novel is mysterious because of the Gothic nature of the text, first of all. And the second point is that we'll see that there's another mystery around this novel, not in the text, but around the author and the history of the author. And Crafts incorporates some Gothic elements into her work, and that result, of course, in mixing the elements of reality and fiction. I don't know about you, but I was struggling sometimes finding drawing the line between reality and fiction sometimes. And that might be because she makes clear allusion to Gothic works, and we'll see that some passages are really similar with Charles Dickens, Bleak House, or even Edgar Allan Poe, as we studied last week. And however, this process of inspiring herself from other writers, it's not plagiarism, it's more about the skill of being a bit able to incorporate those elements to tell the story and support the narrative. And this process, William Glinson, the author of the collection of essays In Search of Hannah Crafts, he talks about a transformative process to describe it. Now, one word on the Gothic tropes. We already know Gothic with Edgar Allan Poe, but just to refresh our mind, in his dictionary of literary terms and literary theory, the English author Cudden, who wrote a very good dictionary, by the way, if you want to use it for your future essays or anything, it's a very good one. So he writes that Gothic novels are tales of mystery and include dark forests, supernatural torture, wild and desolate landscapes, atmosphere of doom and gloom. So I feel like all the elements from the description are coherent with the overall impression, the feelings that I had after reading the text. Yeah, I'll be very happy to hear about your impressions as well in the discussion section. And now let's look at this passage on the left side at the beginning of chapter 5. We have a sense of supernatural with the trees in the gloom taking the forms of man, and the tension as well. Everyone must be aware that a person traveling at night, especially a female, would be certain to excite observation. And this passage also appears just before they find, I don't know if you remember, a gloomy shelter in that dark forest. You can see the description on the right side. Suddenly we were surprised and alarmed by emerging into a small clearing in which stood an old cabin. Cautiously we advanced, as cautiously we entered. So I don't know about you, but I had these images in my mind while I was reading the text. So something really gothic, really like a gloomy shock in the forest, something really stressful, you know. So yeah, those passages also appear just before her mistress turned mad and even died from mental disorder later on. So she states, the mind of my companion becomes seriously affected. Want, fatigue, exposure, and long agonized of mental torture had deeply wrought on her physical constitution and impaired her intellect. So here we can see that the nature, the Gothic nature is obvious and paramount. And if you're not convinced, Professor Theories Godou state that the Anglo-American Gothic tradition is deeply rooted in slavery, in the sense that American Gothic is the perfect genre to capture slavery in writing. So I hope that convinced you that Hannah Craft's writing is really Gothic, because now we'll try to explore the link between that novel and Charles Dickens' Bleak House. The scholar Hollis Robbins observed that Kraft has read The Bleak House from Dickens, and that is really coherent with the interview from Henry Louis Gates with the New York Times in 2002. He compares some passages from the Bleak House with some of the manuscript, and we see that, for instance, Dickens wrote that the very shadows, if the cherry trees and apple trees were heavy with fruit, and that Hannah Crafts writes that the very shadows of the orange trees seem dropping with fruit. So here, the comparison is obvious. And if you want to learn more about the Gothic elements and the Dickens allusion in the text, I really recommend to read the text, the complementary text that you'll find on the courseworks. Really interesting and really insightful as well. So now let me introduce you another article written by Professor Rosalina Juna, who explored the connection between the concept of freedom and Hannah's story. And she writes, as with other 19th century writers such as Poe and Dickens, the house is a central symbol. As with Poe and other American writers like Twain, this movement away from the house should signify freedom. And indeed, I don't know about you, but I found that Hannah is in constant motion in that novel. She's escaping from the plantation with her mistress, moving to different states, escaping to the plantation to go to the north, and so on. So there is a really interesting idea of freedom behind this story. Also, I think that this story is really close to the novel from Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher, that we studied last week. And we can see that in Kraft's writing, Hannah tried to describe herself trying to sleep, and it's very close to the one on the right side, The Fall of the House of Usher, who also describes the narrator trying to sleep, and they are really close with the first person perspective, the reader being in the mind of the narrator, and also the Gothic vocabulary, the lexical field of pain, of terror, horror, darkness, and so on. But there is still another mystery around that novel, because how can we explain that those references have been used, the use of Gothic devices and all the charms of the mid 19th century fiction, since Kraft was a slave and the education of slaves were strongly discouraged and very limited at that time. So the first element of answer is that we learn in the novel that she was told as a child to read and write by the old woman owned Hetty, and that established the basis of her literacy. So that's the first answer. And the second one is that we learn in the preface that Henry Louis Gates, who authenticated the author of the book, he noted that Hannah had access to the library of the master, and he's describing his investigation in the preface. But Alex, in her video, is going to discuss more in depth all that process. But just one word, Henry Louis Gates listed the book that she had access to in the appendix C at the end of the book. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it. Here's some of them. And something strange is that we can note that the Bleak House from Dickens is not on this list. So I don't really know how to interpret this. Maybe you can discuss in the comment section about this, the absence of the Bleak House in the library from the Master Wheeler. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. Here are my sources, and I'll be very happy to answer all your questions in the discussion sections as well. So thank you very much, and have a good night.